Tuesday, November 12th. I have to check carefully on the dates. I've made several errors on dates, but today is Tuesday, November 12th, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And this is the Historic District Commission meeting. We have present Virginia Morse, Chair, Glenn Koppelman, the Planning Board Representative, Richard Wilson, Board of Selectmen Representative, Ralph Murphy, Madeline Willett, George Korn. Absent tonight is Vice Chair Susan Prescott and Stanley Shillette. So let's start with critical correspondence. I put out on tables, except for you and you, updates to the book, because I assume you got them, and I assume you got them or not. He's raising his eyebrow, but I only get them for my members. And I need one more set for Susan. I gave you a set, right? Oh,
yeah, I just gave them to
Those
George.
are new. Those are new. Okay. And then I have a letter from a business about business, and I think I'll take that up after we do the application that we have. So let's take a look at the minutes from the meeting of October 8th. Do we have any corrections, omissions, etc.?
No.
Motion to approve as written.
Okay, that is Glenn, second from Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstain? George, did you say aye? Abstain? What did you say? I wasn't listening carefully.
To the minutes?
Yeah.
I'll have to abstain.
Okay, I didn't hear that. All right. Board updates, planning board, anything for us related to the historic district?
Nothing specific to historic district, but I know last time I updated you on the capital improvement plan status. We had the last meeting of the committee last night, and there were a couple of small changes that Glenn Greenwood needs to make to it, and but the committee didn't think that it was necessary to schedule another meeting, so the meetings are done, and the plan is to bring the updated capital improvement plan, which runs from 2020 to 2025, to the first planning board meeting in December, which I believe is December 3rd, for presentation to the planning board and hopefully adoption by the board.
Very good, making progress.
Did the police station come out of it, the heating and air?
It would, I think it's out of it.
Okay, because it was done.
Okay.
Okay. Selectmen, anything for us related to HDC?
The only thing that everybody probably knows by now, but Graham Ellern was appointed full-time chief, not interim.
Oh,
He was, I did not know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So will be a 3-year contract with a year of probation. He has some incentives along the way, but he made it down to 4 finalists, and he scored next to the highest on the point system. And the highest was a guy from New York that, after some background checks, was eliminated. So. Good for Graham.
Yeah, good work on your part, and
Yes.
good for Graham. Well, that's fine. Okay, Heritage Commission, Susan isn't here, so we don't have anything, and as far as I know, there's nothing going on at ZBA that relates to us. Next, you were going to get the 2020 calendar. That will be coming to you via email as soon as I correct my errors and fix it. And I've been checking with Susan, and I need to check again so that I have the correct dates on there, and then I will check with Adam to make sure that he can be putting us up on TV. So you will get that in the near future. So we're a little bit early, but this is a public meeting, not a public hearing, so we can start early. We have an application from Mark and Susan Santillo. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly? Okay. They have recently purchased the house at 182 Main Street from Al Rousseau, who was here and repaired the slate roof and had other projects that he wanted to do, and we were able to come up with a copy of everything we approved for Al Rousseau, so that the Santillos have it. But now they have another challenge, so come on up. This little thing is a mic, and so it picks up your voices pretty well. I have their application here. I've been down to talk with them, and so if you'd introduce yourselves and tell what it is you're looking to do, and I will share this with the board. That goes your way.
Okay, I'm Susan Santillo, and this is my husband, Mark.
You might want to put that mic sort of between the two of you, so we catch it both. There you go.
Better? Okay. Do you want to?
The application is for putting power to the barn. The underground cable that's existing there is inadequate. It's only a direct ferry 10-gauge wire that can only carry 30 amps.
Is it coming from the house, from the panel?
Coming from the house, and it's coming from the other side of the house. So to increase the amount of the size of the wire would be quite expensive with the amount of wire that has to be buried. It would have to be trenched, conduit, and then the wire, you know.
So there isn't already conduit there where you can simply snake
No,
wire.
it's direct, but I was hoping, trust me, nobody likes easy better than me.
And we'd also have to upgrade the whole house system on top of that,
There's only 100 amp service in the house. I would like to upgrade the house to a 200 amp, but that's still only gonna give me 90 amps or so by the time I get the 100 feet to the barn. And I have welders and compressors. I plan on doing
Hobby.
some
Just his,
repair of old Mustangs. It's a hobby. I had a stroke 12 years ago. That's what keeps me sane, is working on the old cars.
so we had gotten someone out from an electric company to look at it, and they had the power company come out and mark a spot for a pole, and it's in the yard. The first part where they noted is in the drawing. We want to go back to them and propose that there's a second spot where, if it's feasible that they can do it, we would have them
Virginia
move
asked me
it.
if I could put it on the other side of the driveway, even though we don't own much land on that side. There is room for it. And I don't see a problem. The only question would be Unitel saying it's too far from the existing poles on the other side of the street, which I don't think it will be. They'll just go to the next pole, I think.
How far is it, you know?
They measured it, and there's no way it can go from the pole directly to the barn.
No, I mean, how far is it to the second location of the pole from
There's a
pole
second,
street?
the way the poles are, they were coming off a pole, like,
That's directly across from my front door, if you're looking at the map.
so it would cross over and then to the barn. There is a pole here, so if they can go from that pole to this side of the driveway.
Oh, there's one further down?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, so then they wouldn't have to cross the driveway.
No,
Hopefully.
I'm in between two poles, but
Would they have to cross the
unfortunately,
neighbor's
they're on
property?
the other side of the street.
Okay.
And they need so
Yeah.
much height per code,
Right,
the wire, obviously the wire can't, right.
right.
But they don't need to put as big a pole,
So
is what he said, because we're not putting cable and telephone down lower.
Okay,
It's just gonna be power that can go right to the top of the pole, so they're gonna put a pole in that's less than 30 feet. And the charge for that is $85, compared to if I were to hire a contractor to trench and run wire all the way up to the barn, I would get half the power for about $4 grand.
What are they charging you for a pole?
$85.
Nothing.
I know.
I put one
And the
in,
guy was upset about it. He goes, I got bad news.
20 years ago, it was $400.
He says, I got bad news, I have to charge you the $85. I said, come on
Okay.
inside, my wife's gonna make you a cake.
So Susan has called me several times when they were looking into buying the home, and so we'd been conversing, but I did go down and look one time just from the road when they weren't there, and then I went down again and talked with them this weekend. The left side of the driveway, I have to orient it this way, like if I'm going south, I have to turn the map upside down, things like that. The left side of the driveway, they don't have a lot of land, there are some saplings which might need to be trimmed, and there's one rhododendron bush,
That's
depends
gotta
on.
go.
What?
That's gonna have to go.
That would have to go?
I think so, yeah. You'd have to cut it down so low, it'd probably kill it anyways, I
Oh,
think.
those things don't die.
Oh,
They
they-
never
They don't
You
die.
can, you can cut them down to the ground and they'll
It will
sprout.
come
No,
back.
I could kill it.
But it isn't as if there were any big trees they had to take down.
Oh, no.
According to Susan, the reason they put the pole, or maybe, I don't know.
It was
Mike or
purely the
Susan,
power
one of Mark
company
or-
looking
or
for their
Susan.
easiest spot to put it.
Right, so
Without
the-
coming close to that tree.
Right, and there's a big tree here, but it's,
But that
it
tree-
makes it kind of the middle of their yard, and if it were on the left, it certainly would be, if it's feasible for the power company to do that, it would be much more
Aesthetic.
aesthetic look to
And
it.
then is your service gonna go to the left side of the barn? Or are you
Yeah.
gonna cross over the driveway with the,
I would like it just to go right straight down and we'll put it to the
That
left
way,
side of the
if
barn.
we had
Left side of
weather
the
or a
barn.
tree come down, we're
a lot
not,
of times they won't let you cross the driveway.
right.
I gotta reconfigure a lot of things inside the barn to accommodate the service over there. Because the original service and all the lights and everything are wired over to the other side.
You could always leave that as a sub panel and go,
I was gonna leave the 30 amp box that's there
yeah.
and switch it from the house. So I could actually, because the wire already goes to the house, I could put a switch in the basement that shuts off the lights in the barn
Right.
without going out in the snow.
No.
Perfectly works.
Or the cold like we had today.
Yeah, you could feed that small amount from the house.
Right.
And then have your major
Separate.
power coming in.
Right.
To the left of the barn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanna put a car lift and
I'm sure you can do
Two
that, but
welders,
that's not our issue.
And so, your hobby is repairing
old cars.
old cars.
We have a 66 Mustang, that was my dad's. It's got 40,000 original miles on
Is
it.
that what, in the yard now?
No,
that
that's,
is,
I'm
That-
sorry, I'm not a car person.
that
That's
started
okay.
out as a parts car that my daughter fell in love with, so now I have to fix it.
Now
It's
you'll
gonna
have all the
cost-
proper lighting
It's
to,
gonna cost about 3 times more than it's worth.
and she's gonna love you.
that's not our issue either.
So,
Is that including the pole?
so we're gonna restore the house too.
Yes.
I know, we're working on that.
So are the vehicles going in the barn?
Yes, right, I'm supposed, you're gonna get me in trouble, I'm supposed to have that Mustang
I
out of
don't
the
like it
driveway
sitting there.
and behind the barn today, so. It didn't make it, it was too cold.
Well, it's still early in the night.
I was, you're offering to help? I knew I was gonna like you.
Okay, are there any other questions? So they've drawn what the power company suggested first, and obviously would be the very easiest, but I believe from looking at that, it really wouldn't be a big issue for the power company. We're not talking about taking down big trees, maybe
Oh,
a
he'd have to go to
few
the other
saplings.
pole, like you said, I
Or
don't,
come
he
off
did
the
not
other
wanna
pole.
go across the driveway.
Right, right.
But you probably wouldn't want that either, because if you brought a large vehicle in, and
Mm.
you had to navigate with a wire overhead, that's not good for you either.
No,
No,
no.
I used to deliver sheet rock, drive a truck with a crane on it.
Yeah,
You
so
know
I
how
mean,
many
you
power,
know,
power lines I've taken down?
Aesthetically, it would look best on the far side.
It'd be nice straight shot.
As long as
Straight
we can
shot
get them
would
to
be
do
kind
it,
of-
it might be perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll come in an
We're in
angle from
agreement.
the street,
Yeah.
then it'll go straight to the barn, nice and neat.
Yeah, nice
Mhm.
and neat, and
straight
because it's a
along the lot line
beautiful
and
barn.
Yeah.
just into the barn.
Exactly.
Keep the wires all off to the side, and
And I'll have 200 amps in there, I can do whatever I want.
I think our
Good, so are we ready for motion?
So, well, the question is,
Right.
it looks as though the drawing is giving two options, so,
Right.
is the applicant leaving it to us to make that decision, or?
I think we have to go back, I guess, obviously we want your opinion and then go back to the power company and confirm they can do that on that side of the driveway. We have, because if they say we can't do it, now we're back to
What I'd say
square
is
one.
maybe you approve either proposal 1 or 2, I'll go to the power company, if they say can't do that, I'll
We'll
fill
come
out
back.
another application and come back.
What if we approve?
Why do that, why can't we look at both applications and say, approve number one, and number one doesn't work, we'll approve number two.
Or why
Why do they have to come back?
don't we approve number two and not number one, so the
Yeah,
power company will?
They have to,
One
right?
way or the other, you're
Yeah.
saying, yes.
Yeah,
Well, whichever way they want it.
Because I think from a historic district perspective and the purview and the responsibilities of this board, if there's a reasonable option that can be done that preserves the integrity of the property from the streetscape, that's the one we ought to approve.
Okay.
And, and I mean, I'm not the property owner there, but if it were my property and I had the option to put the pole in the property line as opposed to sticking it in my front yard, oh my God.
yes, yes, please.
No brainer.
It's kind of a no-brainer.
I'm
Right,
not objecting to that, I'm simply saying that if that doesn't go,
I understand.
instead of having them come back for second go-around.
I live right there, I have no problem coming back.
You'll get to know
And
us.
I know where Virginia lives, she let that slip.
So I'm all set with the meetings out, so
I will make a motion then to grant a certificate of approval for, I
yes,
believe it's location number two.
Two, correct.
For the new utility pole, which is for clarification, on the
Left side of the
driveway as you're on Main Street, along the property line as described in the application.
Second.
Okay, there's Glenn with a motion,
I'll
Richard,
second it.
Richard beat you to it.
I'm through it.
So, George just asked me, he's an alternate, but Susan isn't here, and Stanley isn't here, so he will be a voting member tonight. I should have said that right at the beginning of the meeting. So we have a motion, a second, a third. Is there any other discussion or question? All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. All of us voted. So, there you have it. What I do is I make out a certificate of approval that says this. You can even shake it at the power company if you want to.
Okay,
And then, I don't know if the building inspector has to inspect that, I don't.
The electrician's
Yeah,
gonna
the
get,
electrician's
they'll get a
alright.
permit for the
So I send
installing the
that into the
service.
selectman's office, and certificate of permission goes in your folder, your house folder, and then there's one for you, and away you go, and I usually do that right away.
okay, perfect,
Okay,
Yeah, the selectman's office downstairs is where you would apply for the permit,
okay,
electrical permit, and the electrical inspector is the one who will come out.
fantastic.
Now, I have a question on their behalf. We were all agreed that the previous owner had approval, let's say, for several things. I'm going to talk specifically about windows. They have a copy of that approval. It hasn't expired, so they may do all of that. It appears that there's one window they do not want to replace. If they leave it as is.
Not cover it,
the former plan had him
cover it.
studding it in and siding over it and taking it out of the whole
Essentially
picture of the house,
Eliminate.
eliminating that window. I would like to leave it.
And
It's a
they would
bedroom
like to
window.
leave it. They certainly can leave something.
right.
They just can't change something that wasn't allowed to be changed, so you're
Okay.
all set with
We are
that
gonna
plan.
you.
replace it with a new window because
Yes,
you
Based
can't
on
light
the
a candle in
specs.
that room.
yes. The window guy was there when I came to visit, so, very
Thank
good.
you.
So I will,
I have a question too. Not this
I'll
one.
send this certificate of approval to you right away.
Okay, thank you so much.
Did the approval include new lighting on the barn that was done by the previous owner? Because there seems to be new lights that have shown up.
No, those were there when we bought it.
They were there when you,
Yes.
so you didn't do that?
No,
I
we just
installed
turned
it.
them on.
Okay, because it seems to be there's like backyard blasters that have been put in on the barn that I don't believe this board had approved, but I haven't looked into
All
the.
right,
So
I'll
are
write
they
myself a note.
Back or the front?
They're in the front yard now on the barn.
Okay.
There's 2 or 3 sets of them now.
And
And,
so-
and we have the whole town ordinance, the dark sky compliant. I don't know which trumps which, but,
Yeah, well, there's a lighting ordinance in town, and it
Okay.
Right.
applies to both residential and commercial lighting. I mean, there are a number of fixtures in town that don't comply. It's kind of obvious when you drive by some of them where especially with some of these new high-intensity LED lights, and there's no shielding on them, they're just,
Almost
The ones that are on
blind
the
you.
barn are motion sensors.
Yeah, yeah, but they're not supposed to leave your property. They're not, the lumens, there's like a lumen rating, there's,
So we were
they're
gonna go
supposed to be
over
shielded,
that today.
and they're supposed to, because they're in the historic district, they're supposed to look historic, like a historic, maybe a goose light with a shade over it type of thing that you'd see on an old barn.
I'm not putting gas lights on.
No, not gas.
I don't care what you
Definitely
say.
not gas.
So one
You've
of
been
the
in that barn, you wouldn't want gas anywhere near it.
No.
One of the things that the lighting may not do is to go more than 3% above the area where the light is, and your max height is 25 feet. So it needs to have a shade, otherwise you're going way above the allowed minimum. I won't say you, those lights are. And if they shine onto a neighbor's property or cause a glare at a neighbor,
In a house.
In the street.
Do you live next door,
I live
or
up the street, I haven't even met you yet.
no? Are they intruding on, is it
Well, I
something that
haven't-
on my house that's bothering you? Because I'll fix it immediately.
I hadn't seen them until we had the leaves have fallen now, so I can see
So
them, you
they're
can see
staying
them.
on.
So you can see them coming down the road, and they're just not something that would be in a historic district in the front yard. And I'm sure you can put them in the backyard, but they need to look like a fixture.
There is
that
one
would
on the
be-
corner that was extremely bright, and I have disconnected it.
Yeah,
There's another one there.
there's another one.
On the
Yeah, I
corner.
believe it.
On the
Because they
corner.
weren't there before. It's
so the
something that's happened.
backyard
since
lighting is the same as the front yard lighting in that, does it interfere with privacy or annoyance for your neighbor? You can be a certain distance from the property line, but you can't go over it. It's all in the lighting ordinance.
Okay, I'll take a look at that.
And I don't know that, I'm almost positive we didn't give permission for those lights because we would have remembered it because,
it was
Siding,
windows,
roofing.
roofing, structurally related.
The one light that's, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. The one light that's over the door is like an old-fashioned, like, I don't know,
Goose-
bent
like
piece
a
of
goose- yeah.
gooseneck, and then they put a modern fixture
over
inside
the
it.
barn door, are you saying?
But it is missing the
Oh, okay.
shade, because they put LED lights in it,
Okay.
and they put a motion sensor on it.
Okay.
So
I'll
they
look at that.
they
Thank
modernized
you
an
for letting us
old-fashioned
know.
light, and it no longer looks like an old-fashioned light.
We can take a look at that.
I think it's important that we look carefully so you can have up to 900 lumens or 1800 lumens, depending on where you are, the space it covers, your neighbor boundaries and all of that. And that's one of the things that I wanted to discuss with the board tonight, because there are several places, especially, in the historic district, because that's where we have jurisdiction, that are far beyond what our town ordinance is for lighting. And so I think we might even be sending out a letter or something, just as a reminder, which would give the parameters for it.
Okay.
But it has a lot to do with brightness, height, and whether it invades the privacy
Of other neighbors.
of your neighbors.
Okay. Good.
So,
The
And-
background's law enforcement, you can't have too many lights,
I know.
especially motion
If you
activated.
talk to our police
Get
chief,
along well with our
right.
police chief.
yes.
The more lights, the better.
That's
Right.
right, that's what he thinks. Okay, well, we'll appreciate your careful monitoring of the use of those lights, and
I
we may
will,
have
I will
something
make
more.
sure that those lights are pointed downward.
And adjust it, and we look at the ordinance.
We'll look at different bulbs. There are LEDs in there.
And maybe,
The whole barn's full of them. They're
Full of
annoying. Even
Maybe-
inside the barn.
Is that right?
maybe the shade
Yep.
over the gooseneck one by the door would be helpful as well. To make it shade down rather than out.
My cousin up in Maine has a whole bunch of those goosenecks with the big
There
shade.
you go.
Yeah, but I can't talk him out of them. He wants a fortune for them.
I just put one on my barn, it's a new one, it's not an old one, but they actually fitted it with not a motion sensor, but a photo cell. So it comes on at dusk and goes.
Oh, nice.
But it's a moderate, it isn't an LED bright, knock your
Well,
eye out
Believe
light.
it or not, well, it is an LED, but it's a little puck light, it's a 10-watt LED, and it provides just a little bit of security lighting along the barn.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a,
If it draws mosquitoes, I'm gonna take them down right away.
You're gonna have plenty of mosquitoes.
I'll shoot 'em
You
out
can't-
myself.
You can't get rid of the mosquitoes.
Oh.
They're terrible here.
I'm gonna put a bat house on the back of the barn.
Yeah, that's good. That'll help a little.
and all the ordinances are online on the town
Okay.
website.
Right.
So, you know, if you wanted to read any of that, it's all there.
Okay, sounds
Everybody
good.
in town is so nice. Did we enter Mayberry?
I know, it's
I
like
told her, I
incredible.
said, don't
Yeah.
be too excited. It could be like a Stephen King novel. You guys aren't gonna be at my back door with axes later on, are you?
So we're all set then?
Well, good luck, you've got
Yes.
quite a project there, and,
We have a
Good
beautiful
luck with your
house
poll.
and
Yes.
quite a
We're gonna work on it.
project
It's
on
gonna
it,
take a
but
while.
it'll be so worth it.
Yeah, good luck with the
Beautiful
property.
house.
Thank you so much, I
Good luck with
appreciate
the
it.
car.
Yeah,
Windows, siding. I gotta fill out an application because I wanna replace the.
We've all been there. We've all, yeah, we know, yeah.
Can I just ask what Trex is out on the front porch?
no, it's not out.
No, it's not out.
we were given some
Wow, we were
misinformation.
misinformed.
Yeah, this is interesting. Okay. Thank you so
I'm
much.
like, why? It looks like, you can't tell from the street. No.
Yeah.
And it lasts forever.
All right.
Have a good night.
Good night, nice to meet you.
See why I thought the people that came in before, I kept thinking, they aren't my new neighbors I just met, the ones that thought they were at the planning board meeting. So when they
Oh, yeah.
came in, I thought, who could those people be?
Where are they originally from? They just moved into town?
Yes, and she told me where they were from, but I can't remember, so, there you have it.
Nice for them.
I'd like to read this piece of mail that I got and, talk about it. This is from Heidi Corson, excuse me. She owns the Down to Earth Garden Shop, where the country store used to be, all along that section. I'm writing this to inform you that the Down to Earth Garden Shop has recently signed a lease for the additional space next to us that was formerly the Kingston Candy Shop, or Unit 3. So we will be occupying Units 1, 2, and 3. There is no...
Wow.
There is no change in the business plan, only the ability for us to have more space to sell our wares. The contact information remains the same, and she gives all that. At this time, we have no plan for additional signage. If and when we do, we would submit a letter and ask for an application from the Town and Historic District Commission. Please advise as to any other steps we may need to take. We greatly love being in town and appreciate all your input and assistance. Sincerely, Heidi Corson. See, it is Mayberry.
That is
I like it too.
excellent news. She's
That's great.
expanding, that's excellent.
The whole building.
That is
Yeah.
great
Sad
to have
about
all that
Kingston
space
Candy,
occupied.
but
Yes.
very good.
I'm sorry about Kingston Candy.
Yeah.
She held on as long as she could, but she just couldn't make it. So I went in to speak to them because I saw Christmas trees lit up in the candy shop area. Yes, so that's their Christmas tree room. One night I went by and one of the Christmas trees was on all night long.
Okay.
But she said that was a mistake. They have timers on them and they all turn off at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Often they have classes that go until 9 o'clock. So they make, well, next weekend they're making fairy houses, if you wanna come make a fairy house, and then Thanksgiving centerpieces and Christmas wreaths and all of that, so they do a lot of, business that way as well. She knows about the turning off the signs, turning off the lights. I thought they had a Christmas tree outdoors on the porch, but it actually was just shining through the window. So they asked if they could put greens and garland around the poles. Yes, not lights. And they put lots of stuff out every day, but they take all this extra signage in, you know, open or whatever it says. And they've only left decorations like Thanksgiving decorations out. So they're doing really well, and they're quite busy.
I would think it would be okay for her to put lights out for Christmas, as long as it's not year-round, but just for
We have
Christmas.
allowed some leeway on special events like
Yeah.
Christmas,
Yeah.
or when it's Kingston Days,
Right.
people have put out some extra signs.
Right.
So I was talking with Glenn, and he felt that, they have, certificate of approval for units 1 and 2. They really need a certificate of approval for unit 3. Richard didn't think it was such a
Well,
big deal.
They're not
so-
doing anything to the outside, so that's what you govern, right?
From the planning board or from us?
Well, we govern use, so it's the same use,
Same use.
just expanded space, no
No
new
signage.
signage.
Well, it could be handled, based on the letter. I mean,
She's let us know, so,
she's let us know, so it could, I mean, if this commission wanted to, it could, I suppose, vote to, essentially modify the certificate of approval based on this letter
Okay.
to include those additional spaces for
Okay.
business use,
Right,
because nothing else is changing.
Make it clear if they do any more signage or anything,
Yep,
then they'd have
yep.
to come back.
yep,
So say,
Which she already acknowledged that she
Yeah,
would,
right.
but
yep. So everything here is here, there's no drawing we would need, we know where they are. And I've got her contact information, her phone number, units 1, 2, and 3, that there's no additional signage, so even though this isn't on formal application paper, it's all the information that we would gather from the application.
and if we did correspondence back and referenced the original certificate, sort of use a letter as an amendment to that, I would see attached. Yeah, I would think, as long as it ties back to that approval, I would think it would be fine.
And it's great, she can just go walk without going outside.
yeah.
From Unit 1 to Unit 2 and into the one with the trees
Yes, you can, there are doors you can walk all the way through.
without going outside.
I'm so happy she's doing well.
Oh.
Yay,
And in such a short period of time.
I know, that's amazing. Good for her.
Her use of that additional space is just for the holiday season, or is it?
No, she says they have signed a lease for the additional space.
I think that's where she's gonna do her classes.
More room to expand to do the classes, that's great.
Other, units,
I'm sorry.
people living upstairs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
I think there's 3,
I think
Is
there
it
are
3?
2 on the first, on the second floor, and 1 on the third.
So would we like to do, I think that would require a motion, and then I would give correspondence back, I'd tie it to the previous approval, and then I'd let, Robert Stewart know that, or send that copy to the selectmen, so they know that it's all happening.
Well, and actually, she probably should contact Robert to, she's taking over new space, and so it might require a modified certificate of occupancy. The town probably wants to check just to make sure that everything's up to snuff.
Yeah, because I thought it always, if you expanded your business, it was go before the planning board. Just to go do whatever you needed to
That's the
do.
other question now.
Yeah.
I would think it'd be just a letter.
I would
Yeah.
think similar to what she's done here, that she ought to contact the planning board and just
Right.
inform them as well, and oftentimes we can handle something like that by means of a letter. Unless the board feels that they want to have a conversation with the business owner, then they will invite her in. But I think if she communicates with the planning board, just like she's communicated here, we can start there.
So her business has expanded in size, and her occupancy will also expand, if she's gonna hold classes. Is that where this certificate of occupancy comes into? Because she's now gonna have more people in that building than original?
No, it's just that whenever a business changes hands, the town, by its rules, requires a new certificate of occupancy, which means the inspectors come out, they check to make sure that everything's up to code for safety and all of that. And so, for the part of the building that she's taking over, she's replacing a business that was in there, so she's occupying a new space now. So, she would need a updated certificate of occupancy for that space.
So I'd send a copy of our correspondence, not only to the town, but I'd send it to the planning board. But I'd also ask Heidi to send a letter to the planning board just saying that, let me know if you need me to come in, that sort of thing. Right. So if someone is anxious to make that motion, I will take care of it.
So I'll make a motion that we amend, based on the letter that we've received from
Heidi Corson.
Heidi Corson, for property located at
Hold on, 167 Main Street.
167 Main Street. That we amend the existing certificate of approval to increase the space that she's occupying in the building of that location to incorporate units.
2 and 3. No, just 3. They already had 1 and 2.
Just three.
Just
adding,
3.
Okay, adding unit 3 to the 2 that she currently occupies.
Yes.
And that with the understanding that any further work that she might do to the exterior of the building, any signage, anything like that, she would need to come back to this commission.
Second.
Third.
Oh. I
I'm
beat
not
you,
going
George.
for
So whenever we put a condition on it, I write that right on the certificate, so this would be a condition if there's any change like the signage. All right. Any other comments or questions? So all those in favor of that lengthy motion, thank you, Glenn. That's good. Aye. That's unanimous. No one's opposed and no one abstained. Very good. I will take care of that as well.
Good news, good news.
On my agenda, I did put that we would work on our sign ordinance, but I would like to say that lighting in the historic district has reached a critical issue.
Yes.
And I appreciate your bringing that up tonight, Maddie, about their house. They are so happy to be here, and they've been so accommodating. They even called and said, can they put up a little fence in the backyard for their dog to run? So, but that is not so for lots of places, and it just happens to be more towards our end of town. I don't know of other issues on the other end of town, but it is getting out of hand. So I spent a lot of time looking at our zoning ordinance, and it's very clear that we need to do something about it. And it's very hard to go knock on your neighbor's door and say, would you please turn your light out? So I want to read what it says, 302.1 about outdoor lighting ordinance, because I think this is the underlying part of any action we might want to take. The benefits of good outdoor lighting are increased safety, energy efficiency, enhancement of the town's evening character, and improved security. New techniques have created extremely powerful lights, which can inadvertently lead to excessive glare, light trespass, and higher energy use. Concerns resulting from excessive glare and light trespass, including safety issues, loss of privacy, and an increased energy cost for everyone. Goes on for quite a bit, but it talks about lighting to maintain and complement the town's character. And certainly, the character of the town, of the Historic District Commission is our issue. So there's a great deal of detail, and it's very complete about how much light you can have, how many lumens, how tall on any structure, house or barn, I suppose it could be a pole, the light can be put, how far it can be to the boundary, property boundary, and so there's a lot there, and there are several that do not live within this ordinance. And the ones on the house with the Santillos that we were just talking about, if they turned those all on, it would be almost every light except the ones on their porch would be out of keeping with this ordinance.
Well, there's three, I think there are three of the dual backlight blaster things that have been placed up.
They're similar to the one that's in the house next to you.
Yeah, they're probably the exact same version, probably, yeah.
So how do we go back onto the people that are in violation, current violation?
Well, just so that everyone knows, in 302.3, that same next section in that ordinance, it says that all public and private outdoor lighting installed in the town of Kingston shall be in compliance with the regulations established by this ordinance. So, some people think that the lighting ordinance is just for commercial applications, but
Yeah, it's not.
It's not.
Right.
It's for all lighting.
Right. I mean, the assisted living, they did a beautiful job with lighting. It is so, it's darker than
Our
Main
neighbors.
Street.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
No, they did a nice job with that.
Really, really nice job.
We did have a lighting issue on the animal dermatology business, which is also a rented house upstairs, a business downstairs, in which a large alarm box and two large alarm lights were there that were way over the lumens here, and we specifically asked them to remove it, and they did remove that. I'm not sure whether,
But I think
how to
that's
say
because-
this diplomatically. I don't want to just deal with places that affect me.
Right.
I think that we need to be consistent, that if there are violations of our ordinance within the historic district, maybe we send out a message to everybody, pay attention. Maybe we pick out the places that don't fit and we specifically write to them. I'm not sure what to do. It doesn't seem fair just because if it's shining in my eyes, now I'm going to pay attention to it.
Right. Right. Well, I think the vet, that was a fixture that wasn't historic looking at all, right on the front vestibule of the entrance.
Yes.
And I think that's what's happened. Those things have been installed on the front of a facade, and that's not historic looking at all. Those are backlight blasters for your backyard. It's not something you would see historically.
Right, and for safety, as Glenn says, for safety and along the front of its barn, and he has a business of Christmas trees there, anybody would want to be able to see to walk out to their car,
Right.
or safety, or have a motion.
But there's so many
But
options.
lights that light up the entire yard, the street, and into the neighbors' houses, right, it's just not acceptable.
Right.
And it's so easy to pick up those really bright LED lights now, or, well, there are all kinds of different ones.
It
But
makes it
they're
look like
extremely
new.
bright.
It's laser beam lights.
Laser beam.
Yeah, they're just so bright, and that's great that they have great lights like that, but there's a place for everything.
So, I'm not quite sure what action to do, except, knock on the neighbor's door, but then it's hard to say, you have to take the light off, fix it, do this, that, and the other.
Well, we
So
do have
looking for
jurisdiction,
ideas.
we have jurisdiction over light fixtures, so if it's not in keeping, and the, town ordinance, dark sky compliant,
One of the things that we could make sure we add, I'd have to look and see if it's in our, put it in the ordinance or in the regulations. I think in our ordinance, it says in the historic district, people will comply with all signs. And then it talks a little bit about signs, but it also refers to signs that are the whole town ordinance, not just historic district. There's no mention of the fact that you need to comply with the lighting, the town lighting. That doesn't mean you don't have to, but
Right.
it needs a reminder, but
Yeah.
that still won't fix what our challenge is.
because even though it says lumens in this, no one knows what they just know they want a light bulb, and here's a cheap light, or, cheap for energy efficiency light, and they throw it in there, and they have no idea how strong that really is, and if it matches that ordinance.
Well, they can read it right off the light bulb.
Oh, yeah, well, does it tell them how,
Yes.
okay,
Yes, so I did some research on it, and, brightness in lumens, and you need about 800 to be able to read, easily.
okay,
So you can get watts and lumens off any light bulb, you can read that.
Okay.
So you could know, if you put spotlights out, how many lumens you were directing. And then you also know how far you are from your property line.
well, would they figure that out? I don't, the planning board probably has had to deal with this more often with businesses. Do you have someone go out and check that? Like, is there some kind of a gun that they can, can check sound? Can you check the light and the lumens, and if it's spilling over anyone's property?
You can.
Yeah.
There are meters that do that. But usually when the planning board is involved with this, it's with a new business being
Right.
established.
Right,
And so the plan set will include, cut sheets for the fixtures that they're gonna install.
okay, so they already know,
So you know what they're using,
okay.
and there's usually a sheet in the plan set that is an illumination plan.
Wait, no, don't play. Record, here, thank you, go ahead, Glenn, thank you.
There's usually an illumination plan which shows where the fixtures are located.
Right.
And the disbursement of light over the site, and there are lighting designers and
Yeah.
people who do this.
Yeah, because I've seen some of the plans, and they show like where it
Yeah.
goes, and it
Right.
makes sure it's not gonna be on
Right, it's not,
the neighbor.
it's not supposed to spill past the property line, and they're
Right.
supposed to, they need to show that on the plan.
Right,
Now, if they go ahead and they build it, and it's different than that, then someone has to go and check.
so do we have inspectors that go out and we're like, just shoot something out there and like, okay, that's going into the road or
The
anything?
town has a decibel meter for checking sound ordinance stuff, but I'm not sure that we have any equipment for checking lighting.
I have a light meter, but, I don't think anybody's ever, when there's a complaint, most times it's said to people and they change it.
Yeah, yep,
I don't know that we've ever gone out and checked
right,
spillage or
yeah,
any of that. I mean, when I was building inspector, I can remember one instance where there was a big complaint between neighbors, and we didn't have such a
oh,
tight ordinance at the time, but we got them to change the fixture.
okay,
That was 20 years ago.
yeah, yeah,
Of the people that you might want to approach in one way or another, roughly how many households are there that come under this questionable luminary?
4 that I know of, but that's only because I'm on that end of town. I haven't done due diligence to go the rest of Main Street and see if there's a problem. Or HD2, I don't know, someone from HD2 might
right,
have a light shining right in their bedroom
I
window.
bet if you drive through town out of the, what is there now, 2,500 households or whatever, but there's probably 500 that have something wrong.
Yeah,
And on any given night, the light might be on or not on.
Right, you're right.
So,
Hit or miss on whether,
Yeah.
I mean, I can light my house up like a prison, but I never have the lights on.
yeah,
I would never use them.
Yeah.
Unless my wife's home alone and hears something.
yeah.
And she can light it up like a,
so, I mean, there are a couple of ways that the commission could do something. I mean, obviously, if there are sort of some egregious deviations from the regs and the ordinances, I mean, those can be addressed directly by the town. But, you know, a lot of times it's just that folks aren't aware of
Oh, yeah,
what the rules and regulations are.
Right.
And, I mean, maybe it wouldn't hurt for the town, through this commission, to periodically put out like an informative news bulletin or letter or something that goes to all residents of the historic district, just, you know, just informing them of, you know, different things.
yeah.
And maybe even extract, like this 302.3, extract some of these and incorporate it into what we're talking about, which is.
Right, and I think that would need to be translated into lay terms.
Yes.
Right.
Because, I read the definition of what a lumen is. 1 foot candle, is 1 lumen per square foot. Okay, what does that mean to me?
Right.
How much light is that
Yeah.
actually?
candle.
Yeah, is it a foot candle, does that mean a foot tall, or is it a candle?
Away.
A foot away, so, okay,
Well, maybe we can
so
put
how
something
many,
on the,
how many birthday candles is that versus regular? I mean, I'm being
Yeah, you have
facetious,
to
right?
break it down into
But it has
layman's
to be
terms.
layman's
Right.
terms, and as I said, anybody can read that off the bulb to know if they have indeed purchased more than they're allowed to. But also, the style of the lights.
Yeah. that seems to
So
be-
you get some protective lighting without putting anybody's eye out.
With a shade or something.
maybe we can put a reminder on the website that we change on a regular basis about different things. You know, lighting one time, signage one time, just different areas.
That's another way to
Although-
get the word out.
Now I think it's probably less than half the town that sees that.
Right, yeah.
And
I think they'll need to
although the lighting standards are applicable to the whole town, this commission obviously is.
More sensitive.
Is, well, yeah, but dealing directly with the 2 historic districts.
And we have sent letters to both our historic districts before. We've composed a letter, we remind them about certain things. We have hoped they enjoy the benefits they get from living in the historic district. We haven't just sent out scolding letters, hey, look out.
Yeah,
And so that might be a good way to do it, and put some lay language in there that would help people understand. 'Cause I had to work hard at this and consult my husband a couple of times to get this.
You know, you talk about those
clear.
terms, I went and bought light bulbs yesterday, and now it's all specific on every bulb, but they have what they're supposed to do. I mean,
Yes.
every bulb you buy is marked.
That's right.
yeah.
Right.
But if they don't know what the maximum is, they just want bright is good.
Right,
So we can tell them what the maximum is, and you can find the maximum by reading the light bulb that you're gonna put in that
Right, so
fixture.
they have to have some verbiage that explains, this is what the bulb says, and this is what you're entitled, or that you have to comply to.
And not only is there brightness on these LED bulbs, but there's different warmth,
yeah,
color factors.
yeah, that's,
And you can get them so that they're much more subdued,
Daylight,
more, yeah, as,
what was it? There was 3, there was daylight,
And then again,
The CRI, Color Rendering Index, will tell you what it is.
yeah,
and
but
the
what
thing
are
is, I
they?
looked-
There's daylight was 1. Can't remember what they were, one's like, I wanna say mood light, but
that question though, is, I mean, you can have multiple fixtures, so if you have a 500 lumen bulb and you gang 3 of them together,
Yeah,
Now you got 1,500 lumens,
right,
but you only have 500 per bulb, so again, the confusion factor.
Right,
Right.
right, right.
total lumens that you give out.
Total, yeah,
You
Yeah.
have 1,500.
Right, and, some of those very bright, unshaded ones are on 24/7. Yeah, they're not just motion detectors. Well, shall I work on a letter that, references this? Anybody can go read all of this, they're not going to, but put some language in it that sounds
Inspect
friendly and
services.
specific.
Now, the town is providing a letter to residents when property changes hands, right?
Yes, they are.
Okay,
I
so
checked with them.
there's that, but then there's also, I mean, properties don't change hands all that often
Right,
typically, so, and plus rules and regulations change over time.
right.
You know, I think that the more that we can do to educate people, the
Right.
better off we are.
I think lighting, I mean, especially throughout the other parts of town, is something that always slips through the,
Oh, yeah,
I know a building that was recently replaced because of fire, and their lights are like driving down a runway when you go by it, you know, it's ridiculous.
yeah.
And it's one thing to have lights that would make it safe to walk around your yard to get to your car or out to the trash can or whatever. It's another thing to have them lit up as bright as a commercial parking lot.
Right.
And we're dealing with some of that.
And they're just shooting straight out too, they're not, they're not, you know.
Okay, well, I've got some homework to do. First, I have to fix what I didn't do right the first time, and then I'll work on this a little
Okay.
bit.
Sort of uninformed innocence.
Yeah, because you know what, the Scintillas just moved in, they wouldn't have known that what they had, they just moved into that. So they didn't know.
Yeah, Ralph, but, I didn't know what the law was, doesn't hold much water, so it may be uninformed innocence, but they need to get
Right,
informed.
so like Glenn said, now we need to put something out to inform them.
Right.
Just,
Hey, now with the new lighting that's available, please keep in mind.
yes, exactly.
Yep.
And it could just be a nice informative, easy to read.
Right.
Simpler the better, and the detail can always be had by going into the Bible.
Gee, Glenn, you just finished writing up some good stuff for HD. Maybe you, and, Envision Kingston too, related to 79E. Maybe you're getting ready to write something else, huh?
Maybe.
Pass the buck is what I'm doing, right?
Good job.
Okay. Do you think that's enough for tonight? Can
No,
we leave the
I
sign
have
ordinance?
one more thing.
Well,
You asked
we're-
me to check
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, but instead of going into the sign ordinance tonight.
No,
Okay,
no, not the sign order.
okay,
This was, you asked me to check up on 137 Main Street,
yes.
so I did. And I thought that they had asked for a dormer on the back of their house, and I thought it was gonna be the backyard, and first I had to find where 137 Main was, so they were going to put a dormer. They had a single dormer before, and they were going to add a three separate window dormer. But what they did, let me see, I'm gonna pass this around. They, instead of having a recessed dormer, they just brought the dormer flush with the front of the house and added, instead of 3 of the same window, they put 2 of the same and then a little teeny hexagon.
And where's this, what's the
This is
location?
down.
137
What they added.
Main Street. So here's what it was back in 2007, and that's what it is now. So I wasn't here, it's right next to, the Skip Clark's old house, the White House on, right down here,
Oh,
right here on this side, same,
this side,
same as,
This side of it.
yes,
Yeah.
this side.
So, here's the front of it. This. And then instead of
So I wasn't here when they approved this, so I didn't even know.
Just the dormer, it goes all the way down with 2 windows and a tiny window.
So that's on the connector between the house and the barn, is that right?
So, yeah. So this is what they proposed, and they even said, 3 windows of equal size, and then there was gonna be 2 to 4
Very specific measurements.
very specific measurements, and they just went straight up,
Straight across.
straight across.
Oh, so this was supposed to have been a dormer,
Right, like this, like this. That's what they proposed.
so that's like this,
It took a little leeway there.
because that little part of that roof is this building,
Right.
okay. I'd say they didn't do it all what they said
Yeah,
they
the
were gonna do.
window is,
It
instead of that
doesn't
third
even
window.
closely resemble what they,
Yeah, so I don't know what you want to do with that.
They overbuilt it.
Yeah.
Here's that one.
My guess is they got into it, the builder said, you know, it'd be a lot easier and cheaper if you do it
Yeah.
like this, and I said, okay.
Well, not only that, it looks as though it's higher, it has less of a slope, so it's
Yeah.
probably providing more headroom.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure they get more square footage out of
However,
it.
it
I
doesn't,
think it's an apartment unit.
it doesn't appear to be what was approved.
No.
well, then,
Thank you, Matty.
what are these two here doing? If these two,
So I think there's an apartment
what I
That's
mean.
the
building
main
back.
Oh,
part
that-
of the
okay,
house.
so
That wasn't-
these two are
That
the-
wasn't going to be changed at
Apartment
all.
building?
It's this 2 alike and 1 small, all the way from roof to
Oh, okay,
ground,
okay.
as
So-
opposed to just a dormer.
I have a couple questions on this, is why it wasn't called by the building inspector. Would be my first thing, because if this is what they turned in,
Yeah,
and then they did something totally different.
Right.
Totally
Was it ever
different.
inspected? Maybe it wasn't.
So maybe maybe we start with Robert
Start with Robert and then find
and
out
see what was done with regard to inspection and permits and,
if it was never inspected, then they've got major trouble.
Yeah.
How long ago was this? When was,
I don't even
what
know.
was the date on that, Virginia?
It was long overdue to be inspected, that's why our new
No, but
plan.
the certificate was, what year?
Oh,
it ran
no,
out,
no,
not long, it ran out
it
August.
ran out in August, okay, so it wasn't that long ago.
When was it issued? Does it have an issue date on it?
2 years
Yes.
before.
August 8th, 2017, and then always now it says on it, has to be completed by
Oh,
August
right, the
8th,
2 year.
2019, the 2-year.
You want me to take it and follow up with Robert?
I would like to have you do that, thank you. That would be
Talk to
great.
him on some other stuff, so.
Okay, good enough. So I'm not sure if we had that sort of tickle chart when you were here, but take all the, applications, and they're all good for 2 years.
Right.
And then have all of us take turns checking
just
on
started
the ones. Yes, we just started it, so that's paid off. One family said, we didn't finish it, we're gonna modify it, we'll come back to you when we do. Okay, that's good to know. Or we run into something like this, which, could be all kinds of issues related to that. So I think that, checking
Oh,
on those is really worth the
it is,
effort.
it is. And most of them we find that
Yes, have done what they said they were
they
going to do.
comply, they've done what they were approved to do.
Okay, folks,
Motion, you ready for this?
I am ready for this.
Motion to adjourn at 8:05 PM.
Second.
Boy, we got a 1-2 team here, all in favor of adjourning at 8:05.
Aye.
And Ralph says I am. Good, Ralph, very good. Are we all set there, Adam? He says yes.
We still did so